Good morning, everyone, and I'm really grateful to be here to be able to talk to you today. And I'd just like to say thank you very much to David for demystifying some of the science for us about ovarian cancer and how it affects us. So what I'd like to talk to you ladies today is about how that translates to you and I on a personal level. And I'm very humbled to be able to share my story of what my experience has been with ovarian cancer. And I was interviewed recently for another reason and described myself as ordinary, just an ordinary housewife that was diagnosed 4 years ago with high-grade serous epithelial ovarian cancer. I heard someone speaking on the weekend that said, well, we're not just ordinary, we're extraordinarily ordinary. And I'd like to think that's just the case, where this cancer just affects ordinary people. It's not something that happens to somebody else, it happens to us. And that's a difficult concept sometimes to understand, that it is just, the risk of acquiring this is just being a woman. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to share a little bit about my story and how I was diagnosed with the disease. So I was 48 years old and really didn't have any of the classic symptoms of bloating, needing to go to the bathroom frequently, those sorts of things. I had been fatigued for some time and I wasn't really concerned about anything seriously wrong with my health. I presented to the doctor just to have a check, and everything was fine. Blood tests were all normal, all the standard tests were fine. I had presented with a very small nodule in my navel, which the doctor at the time said, oh, it's probably just an umbilical hernia. And I went away thinking, no, I'm all good. I'm just busy because I've got 3 children, I'm premenopausal, and that's what's making me tired. So 4 months passed and the nodule increased in size, and another doctor was quite concerned about it. So I was sent for some testing. I had a biopsy done and it was shown to be malignant, and from what they thought was a gynecological cause. So that was a very difficult piece of news to receive, and it was news that I received over the telephone. So 8 o'clock one night, 28th of June, remember the date very clearly, I had a phone call to say that was what had happened. So the following week was a week of a lot of tests, which I'm sure many of you have had, CT scans, ultrasounds, blood work, and again told over the telephone that in fact it was ovarian cancer. So surgery followed that, followed by the standard protocol of chemotherapy, which I found incredibly difficult. I'd had an allergic reaction to Taxol, and just mentally found the challenge of getting through chemotherapy very difficult. So fortunately I had a wonderful doctor who did get me through that 6 months, and I then was fortunate enough to have a 2.5-year remission, in which time I was very well and I lived very well. Unfortunately, my CA-125 started increasing again slowly at first and then quite rapidly, and I was found to have had a recurrence of the cancer on my right lung with a pleural effusion. But again, being a little bit unique, it was only found to be there, and I had no disease in my peritoneum or the usual places that this cancer likes to hide. So from July of 2015, I had a further 7 rounds of chemotherapy of carboplatin and Calyx, and finished that treatment. So yes, I had finished my chemo in January this year, and I was offered, I had previously had the BRCA1 and 2 genetic testing that David discussed earlier. And
I think a few people are actually saying that the sound's gone, picture gone.
Everything's gone, okay.
No, so we can actually, I can confirm that audio is still coming through.
Sound okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know what's happened on my end. It just came up with a message. My computer said it detected a threat. So I'll still keep talking. So I was offered to take part and have testing done for somatic mutation of BRCA1 and BRCA2, which was like someone talking another language to me. I'm an accountant by profession, so not really all over the science of this sort of thing. So I have since had all of that explained to me, and I was very unsure as to whether to proceed with that testing or not, because these currently come at a cost. And many decisions have been made along the way during my treatment as to whether I would have certain drugs that were going to cost and tests that were going to cost, and this test came at a cost of $1,200. So finally, I agreed to have the testing done, and I was advised only a week ago today that I actually was positive for a somatic mutation of BRCA1. So where that leaves me now in terms of future treatment and plans is still a little bit up in the air. I think there will be decisions that have to be made as to whether I opt to start taking some of the drugs that are available, which come at quite considerable cost. So because of all of those things that I've experienced, I've become very passionate about trying to support other women who are going through the same, on the same pathway, so to speak. I understand from what David has spoken about this morning that ovarian cancer is not one disease and in fact is a subset of different diseases. But from my perspective, whilst our clinical paths are very different, and I think it's really important because I have been guilty of this in the past, we meet other women with ovarian cancer and we become concerned that the way their disease progresses may be the way our own progresses, which is not the case, and our clinical paths are very different, and that's why you'll hear so many wide and varied stories. But our commonality is the impact that it has on our lives and those of our family and our close friends, the fear of our future and the fear of treatments and what is coming next is always with each and every one of us. And I think there can also be an isolation, and not necessarily in that you're alone. You can be surrounded by family and friends, but the isolation of feeling you're the only person with this disease. Having said all of those things, I have found that there are so many positives that have come out of my diagnosis. I've had the opportunity to meet some incredible people and made many new friends. I've had the opportunity to speak to many groups of women about my story, which I still think is very humbling that people want to listen to my story. And a diagnosis can bring a very positive change in the way that you choose to live your life. I've been fortunate that I have had 47 months since my diagnosis of exceptionally good health, despite having retreatment. I have been able to see my son graduate from university, my daughter finish school, leave home and head off to uni, and I have one more son who is only 15, and I would love to be here in 2.5 years to see him also finish school. So essentially what I want for the future is I want hope, and the kind of research that David talks about I think gives all of us hope. Hope that there's new treatments that are going to become available, new ways to deal with each woman's cancer individually. The fact that there could be an early detection test at some point in the future so it never even gets to the advanced stage that so many of us are diagnosed at. Even possibly an understanding of why this cancer has struck us. So all of this knowledge, I think, helps us to live with this disease. I have never referred to myself as a survivor, and I incredibly dislike that term. This disease is chronic. It doesn't leave us, or most of us, and I think you have to learn to live and live well with it. So I feel that through the work of Ovarian Cancer Australia, we need to come together and have a voice. So whenever I get the opportunity, I like to participate in forums where we have interested parties come to the table. So representatives from the PBAC who decide which drugs become available on the PBS, from specialists, clinical nurses, support staff, because I think there's still a long way to go in dealing with the women who currently have this disease and providing ongoing support to us, having someone that we can contact who can navigate us through some big decisions. And I think most of all, we still need to get ovarian cancer on the map. It's happening, and I think this year has been so exciting to see some new initiatives like the ones that David has spoken about, and even just the amount of media coverage and awareness that is out there now. Women are starting to understand more and more about this disease, and hopefully that will help prevent more women being diagnosed. If women know what the symptoms are, what they should be looking for, know to go to their doctors, ask the questions, ask about family history, if there are any members of their family who do carry this gene, and then know how to act accordingly. And if they're not getting the appropriate answers from their doctor, then to go again or go and see a different doctor, because we are the ones that have to be empowered to look after our health. And I think in that respect, all of us need to put our voices together to make sure that ovarian cancer awareness is one of our main priorities. So on that note, I think that's probably most of my story, and unfortunately I now can't see any questions on the screen. My computer has completely let me down here. So Gianna, I don't know if there are any questions.
Okay, so a few questions have come through. Now, Jeanette just asked earlier, didn't you have a hysterectomy? So I guess clarification.
Yes, I had a full and complete hysterectomy in 2012 when I was first diagnosed.
Thank you. Now, Dawn is asking, what stage of was your cancer?
Stage 4.
Stage 4. Fantastic.
Yeah, and it was stage 4 by technical definition. It was detected quite early because I had this small secondary metastases which actually led us to the cancer. So when I was operated on, there wasn't extensive disease, but unfortunately it's stage 4 by the nature of it being metastatic.
Thank you. So Marie, she has stated that, yes, I agree with the fear and the isolation. And now Dawn is also saying, I am hopeful. Yes?
So just comment on that, Marie. I think that's one of the things that I hear most from a number of women. And I live in a regional area of New South Wales, and when I was first diagnosed and was looking for support, it was very thin on the ground. And so after 2 years of doing a lot of persistence with a local group, I managed to actually get a support group up and running where I live, which I now facilitate. So there's a group of about 6 or 7 ladies, and it always struck me that the first time we met, one of the women said that was the biggest thing that she found was the isolation, despite having close family, children, fantastic friends around her, was that sense of isolation. She didn't know anybody else that had cancer, let alone ovarian cancer. So I think overcoming that isolation and having support is absolutely vital.
Thank you. Now, Dawn has also made a comment. I am hopeful for the possibilities of PARP inhibitors as being available as a treatment.
Yes, well, that's the type of drug I'm talking about that I had discussions with my oncologist about, given my recent positive result with the somatic mutation testing. At the moment, for people in my position, they are expensive, and I don't know if I'm allowed to discuss exact amounts on this in this particular forum, but I'll just leave it to say that there are decisions to be made, and And that disturbs me that women are put in that situation where decisions need to be made. And it shouldn't come down to a financial decision from our perspective. As an economist, I understand how much research and money has gone into these drugs being produced, and I understand they can't all be free. However, from our side of the table, it's very difficult to know that there is something available which is not accessible to all women who it may be able to help.
Thank you. Now, Chris has made a comment. Robyn, none of us are ordinary. We are all individuals, and you're right. Each woman has a different journey. We're not all the same when diagnosed. Your comments are inspiring. The impact on our families, diagnosis, and the isolation we feel. It's wonderful that we have great support through Ovarian Cancer Australia and the Cancer Council, and the word is getting out about this cancer. Stay strong.
Well, thank you very much. That's a lovely comment, and that's my sentiment exactly. And look, I'm sorry that I probably have been a little bit. I normally would be a lot better prepared. I think today I've had a disturbing week of having CT scans and blood tests and doctor's appointments, and I'm just about actually to head off to another one once his webinar is over. So I'm glad that she's found something inspiring out of my story. I think that. We women, when we're together, we're a force to be reckoned with. And I had the opportunity on the weekend to attend the High Teal with Judith Lucy that was held in Sydney on the weekend. And yet again, just an amazing group of women. And that's actually where I heard the term extraordinarily ordinary, which I just loved. So to Tanya, who got up on stage and described all of us women like that, I just think take my hat off to you. So, yes, I'm glad that there's been something a little bit inspiring in what I've had to say today.
Thank you. Now, Sue has also made a comment. I have stage 3 ovarian cancer, and she does have questions. So, Sue, perhaps you could follow up with an email to Robyn or to the ovarian cancer, who can forward it to Robyn, who can help answer those questions for you.
Yes, if I can. I mean, I can't answer anything of a technical nature, but in terms of anything that I've discussed this morning or in getting through this whole process, then yes, certainly. As I said, I have no medical knowledge. Everything I do know about this disease, I have read about, I've inquired about, and I think actually that's one more comment that I would probably like to make to women out there. Is that don't be afraid to question your doctors. Don't be afraid to ask what you want to know or to be told, to be telling them you want to be told the truth and not have things sugar-coated. And I've always been very adamant. I've probably annoyed some of my specialists along the way, but this is our health and this is our life, and I think we have the right to have as much information as we wish to know. Some people don't want to know, and that is absolutely fine. For me, I've always found that knowledge has helped me understand what I'm going through and try and make informed decisions about what I'm yet to go through. So I always suggest to women, if you're unsure about something, ask the question. Just really push your point forward and make sure that you're happy with the treatment that you're receiving and that you're happy with the information that you're being given.
Thank you. We have a comment from Cheryl. I would love to meet with other women at conferences of some sort. We need this to be able to grow in all areas of support, understanding, help, etc.
Yeah, and as I said, I have found a great lot of comfort in that. And Cheryl, just keep in touch with OCA, make sure you get their newsletter and be on their mailing list, and when those opportunities come up, they'll certainly send out information. And it's great. The more voices we have together, the louder we'll be heard.
Thank you. Denise has suggested join a support group if you can. It is helpful to be able to talk to people who understand.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, Denise. And if it's the Denise I'm thinking about, we've had many conversations over the telephone across the years and provided support to each other. And that's just invaluable. There's no price you can put on the ability to be able to talk to somebody else who's walking in your shoes, and you don't even need words. You know exactly what the other one is feeling and going through, and it makes a huge difference.
Thank you. Now, Dawn has mentioned in 2012, I was involved in a project out of Flinders Medical Centre in South Australia called Finding My Way, an online support for newly diagnosed, especially for regional people.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm glad that there are places, I haven't heard about that particular one, but I think that's fantastic that there are, local and regional areas doing things to support women in their area.
Now, Cheryl is asking, it is very disturbing that you talk about the money influencing decisions. This is something that we should be able to fight for together. Also, can you get your money back from the genetic testing because you are positive to BRCA1? Just because I had enough cancer in my family to meet the criteria, but my testing cost me nothing. It does not seem fair. I should say that the cancer in my family had no influence on my BRCA1 result, and it came from a different line of my family.
The original BRCA1 and 2 testing I had done for germline mutation was done at no cost when I was first diagnosed. David may know more about this. I don't know a great deal about it. This recent one that I had done where they're looking for a somatic mutation is probably not a standardised practice yet, and I think it was offered through the pharmaceutical company who is marketing the PARP inhibitors. So it may be a little bit unique, and that's probably why that is at this time associated with the cost. But I agree with Cheryl, it shouldn't be a decision. Someone's ability to pay for these things shouldn't equate to their quality or length of life.
Thank you. Now, Sue is asking, do you know how much about Keytruda as an immunotherapy trial in OC?
No, I'm sorry, I can't comment on that. It's not something that I've ever heard about even being used in ovarian cancer, but David may know more about that, but I certainly know nothing about that one, sorry.
Yeah, so Keytruda is a drug called pembrolizumab. They've got long names, but basically it's one of these new classes of immune checkpoint inhibitors that have shown extraordinary success in lung cancer and melanoma and some other cancers. And at the moment, where the field is trying to push those into other more common cancers, including ovarian cancer. So we have a protocol submitted with the company that makes Keytruda to consider a clinical trial in exactly that area. And there are similar trials there's one that's underway in Sydney and some sites in Melbourne with a similar kind of drug. And I think that we'll see quite a few of those trials. At the moment, though, essentially the process is that a trial needs to show a benefit of a new drug in patients before it can get registered in Australia and then get onto the PBS, where it essentially becomes free to patients. So the only way that people are going to access those drugs in the next few years, really, until that sort of benefit's shown, is through clinical trials. Unless they pay for them, as it's been sort of discussed.
Thank you. Now, Karen is asking, I had a similar experience when I was diagnosed. No local support in country Victoria. Started a support group and now have approximately 13 women getting together once a month.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm sure that you're all reaping the benefits of that. And I think I get as much out of it having set it up as hopefully every one of the women who come along. So that's fantastic, Karen, that you've done that, because there's 13 women who are very grateful for, I'm sure.
Thank you. So Sue is asking, I am now up to my 3rd recurrence with following chemotherapy. Do you know of women in Australia who have lived past the 5-year survival rate who are not connected to BRCA gene?
Yes, I actually personally know some that are in that situation. So yes, so there is always hope, Sue, always.
Yeah, I can comment there too. We certainly see that in our study of long-term survivors. Although patients with BRCA1 or 2 mutations generally have a better response to treatment. Certainly there are women who've survived out to 10 years that don't carry those mutations and beyond 10 years.
Thank you. So I can see that Jeanette and Sue have made comments. So Jeanette says, I've survived 11 years, no BRCA gene, still being treated on chemotherapy. Sue, on the other hand, has directing to Sue C. I've had 3 lines of chemo in 2 years. Now platinum resistant. I will soon be starting an immunotherapy trial of BGB A317, an immune checkpoint inhibitor targeting PLD1. They want to recruit 20 women with higher grade serous OC. Ask your oncologist about this trial.
Yeah, so that's the Beijing trial that I mentioned that's based in Sydney, but I think it's recruiting also in Melbourne.
Thank you. Denise also states that it will be 7 years for me come October, still fighting as hard as I can.
Yeah, I've certainly met quite a lot of ladies with ovarian cancer since I was diagnosed, and yes, I certainly do know a number that do not have a genetic mutation who have responded well to treatments and have always remained positive, and I'm always amazed at their resilience. They can, how so many of them, well, many of us have setbacks and we just keep on going. And that's what I was talking about earlier about living well with this disease. And I can remember it being described to me by an oncologist once as, it's a chronic illness. And I remember saying back to them something like, well, yeah, it's not quite like diabetes or something else. It's a little bit more serious as a chronic illness. But it really is, and if you can keep responding to drugs and keep fighting and living well, I think for me that is the key, is really trying to live well when we're not on treatment and really cherishing those times and getting involved with everything that you can in your life during those times when you're not on treatment.
Thank you. So Sue has also mentioned that she would like to finish with encouraging families to attend an annual walk with her. That she's an event that she started this year. It is held on the last Sunday of February, and the website can be found in the chat box at this very moment. Sue also says she's asking, requesting, can I have a contact for Jeanette or any survivors? Denise, 7 years. She's remaining positive and believe her.
Yeah, I imagine that Ovarian Cancer Australia might be able to organise something like that, or, yeah, I don't know, but that's a question perhaps for them at some point.
Okay, so we'll take this as the last comment, as we are running out of time. But from Maureen, living in Perth, I am part of a study of exercise and OC survivors, which is having great results. Also, my genetic testing, WA, was free, and diagnosis and aftercare has been outstanding. She is very positive.
Yep, that's fantastic.
So thank you for all your comments and all your questions. Now, the OCA would like to thank you, Professor Bertel and Robyn Dennis, for your presentation, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. Your feedback is really important to us, and it helps to inform and assist with the future development of our webinars. Please stay logged in to take our online survey, which you will be redirected to shortly. We thank you in advance for your feedback, and we wish you a pleasant afternoon. Now, don't forget to register for our next webinar. Details will be emailed to you and available on the OCA website. This webinar will be available in the next few weeks on the OCA website to view on demand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.